It has been there since the day your house was built, moving through every room, deciding whether you sweat or shiver, whether you sleep or stare at the ceiling at 2 in the morning. You've never given it a name. You've never seen it. But everything your house does, thermally, comes back to this one thing. We're going to call it the column. And today, the column tells its own story. The column is not a metaphor. Not quite. It is a physical reality so consistent, so reliable, that you can predict where it is right now, in your house, without a single instrument. Here's what it is. Inside every enclosed structure, air is always sorting itself by temperature. Warm air is lighter. It rises. Cold air is heavier. It falls. And as long as there is any temperature difference at all between the bottom of your house and the top of your house, the column is in motion. It is rising through your floors, through your walls, through your walls. Crack around your light fixtures and your outlet boxes and the gap where your plumbing pipe enters the wall. It is rising right now. The column is not one stream. It is the combined vertical pressure of your entire indoor air mass, always pushing up, always looking for an exit. And this is where most people's understanding of their house stops. They think in rooms. Kitchen, bedroom, basement, attic. The column does not think in rooms. The column thinks in one continuous vertical path from the lowest air entry point in your structure to the highest air exit point. That path is your house's respiratory system. And right now, you probably don't know exactly where it begins or where it ends. Let's start at the bottom. The column is born where cold air enters the building envelope lowest to the ground. In most homes, that is not the front door. It is the rim joist, that framing member that sits on top of your foundation wall and holds up your floor system. It is the crawlspace vents if your house has them. It is the basement door. It is the gap around the water line entry, or the dryer vent, or the conduit that brings power underground. These are the feeding points. Cold outside air, heavier than the air inside, falls and finds the lowest available entry. And when it enters, it doesn't stay cold for long. It picks up heat from your floors and your walls and your appliances and the people living inside. And as it warms, it joins the column. It rises. Now, here is the detail that separates the houses that breathe from the houses that don't. The column has 2 modes. The first is active, and it happens when there is more than roughly 8 degrees Fahrenheit, about 4 Celsius, between the inside of your house and the outside air. In this mode, the column moves continuously and with real velocity. You can feel it if you hold your hand near a low crack on a cold day. There is a gentle inward pull. The second is dormant, and it happens in those shoulder season hours when inside and outside temperatures equalize. In that window, the column barely moves. The house holds its breath. But here is what you cannot change, regardless of mode. You do not control whether the column exists. You only control where it enters and where it exits. Those 2 points define everything. Let's follow it to the top. The column needs to leave the building. Warm air looking for exit will find whatever is highest and most permeable. In many older homes, that exit is not a controlled vent. It is the attic bypass. The attic bypass. The attic bypass is the collective name for every unintentional gap in your ceiling plane. The recessed light fixture that sits inside your insulation with no air seal. The interior wall that runs from floor to attic, open at the top, acting like a chimney flue you never planned. The plumbing stack that passes through the ceiling. The pull-down attic stair that fits like a cardboard lid over a hole. Every one of these is an exit for the column, and the column will use them. Here is the problem. In summer, when you want cool air to stay inside, the column is pulling warm outside air in at the bottom, heating it as it moves through your living space, and dumping it into your attic. You are not ventilating the house. You are feeding your attic. And in winter, the column is doing the same thing in reverse consequence. Every BTU or heating system produces is rising through those bypasses, warming your attic, and either escaping through your ridge or sitting just above your insulation, melting the underside of the snow on your roof. That melt is ice damming. Not a roofing problem, a column problem. Now let's do the experiment. You need one thing: a stick of incense or a candle, not a thermometer, just a flame or a smoke source. Start in the basement or the lowest level of your house on a cold day, or a day when the inside of your house is significantly warmer than outside. Hold the incense near the lowest gap you can find on an exterior wall, near the rim joist if you can access it, near the base of a door to the outside, near a low electrical outlet on an exterior wall. Watch the smoke. If it pulls inward, slowly and consistently, you have found the bottom of the column. That is where it breathes in. Now go to the top of your house. Stand on a stepladder if you need to, and hold the smoke near a recessed light in the ceiling, near the pull-down attic stair, near the ceiling light box on the top floor. Watch the smoke. If it pulls upward and out, you have found the top of the column. You just mapped your house's respiratory system in 20 minutes with a stick of incense. Now I want to show you 3 different column configurations, because not all houses work the same way. The first is the simplest structure: a single-story cabin with a crawl space underneath and no attic, just a cathedral ceiling. In this house, the column is short. The vertical distance between intake and exhaust is maybe 12 feet. The pressure differential is modest. The column exists, but it is weak. In summer, this house is actually easier to ventilate passively than you might expect, because you can open a low window and a high window, and the column does the work. The problem in this house is usually that people open 2 windows at the same height, not one low, one high, and then wonder why the air doesn't move. The second configuration is the 2-story farmhouse. This is where the column gets powerful and interesting. The vertical distance between the basement rim joist and the attic bypass might be 30 feet or more. On a winter day when it's 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside and 68 inside, that's a 48-degree difference driving constant upward pressure. The column in this house is strong enough to feel without instruments. If you stand in the stairwell between floors on a cold day, you will feel it moving across your face. This house has tremendous passive ventilation potential and tremendous passive heat loss potential. They are the same system. The third configuration is the split level, or the house with an attached garage or mudroom that sits lower than the main living space. This is the most complex column case because the intake points are often in a volume that is sometimes inside the thermal envelope and sometimes outside or conditioned to a different temperature. The column in these houses gets confused. Air enters the garage level, picks up car exhaust and stored gasoline vapors, and rises into the living space. This is the house where people say, "I don't know why, but the main floor always smells a little like exhaust." Now they know. Let's talk about control, because knowing the column exists is only useful if you can direct it. There are 3 points of control. The first is the intake point. Where does cold air enter at the lowest level? If you can control this, you can control what air feeds the column. A sealed and insulated rim joist means the column feeds from the living space itself, and the exchange happens through windows and designed vents rather than through gaps in your foundation. In winter, this is exactly what you want. The second is the exhaust point. Where does warm air exit at the highest level? If your only exit is an uncontrolled attic bypass, the column is dumping your conditioned air into a space you are not trying to heat or cool. Seal the bypasses. Then give the column an intentional exit. A ridge vent, a high gable vent, or an operable transom window above a door. The third is the path between them. This is the one most people never think about. The column moves through your house not just vertically, but through whatever internal openings exist at each level. An open staircase feeds the column efficiently. A closed door between the basement and the main floor makes the column find another way, usually through the wall cavities. You can slow the column by closing interior doors strategically. You can speed it up by opening them. You can redirect it by creating a low intake on one side of the house and a high exhaust on the other, so the path of the column becomes horizontal as well as vertical. A house that reads flow needs less brute force. There is one scenario where the column becomes most visible in its destructive mode. It happens at night in summer. Your bedroom is on the second floor. You have been awake for an hour. The temperature outside dropped to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 Celsius, an hour ago. But the ceiling above your bed is still radiating heat stored from the afternoon, and the column is still pulling warm air up from the first floor, where your appliances and bodies spent 8 hours warming the air mass. The column during these hours is not helping you. It is delivering the accumulated thermal load of the day's activity directly to the highest point of the house, which is your bedroom ceiling. The solution is not a fan pointed at your face. The solution is to reverse the column's feeding direction at this hour. Open a window in the bedroom, high in the wall if possible, as the exhaust. Open a window at the ground floor on the north side of the house, or the shaded side, as the intake. Now the column runs in your favor. It is drawing cool ground-level air in at the bottom, passing it through the living space and exhausting it out your bedroom window. You just turned your house into a passive cooling machine using physics that was already there. No electricity. No equipment. No filter to change. Just the column, working with you instead of against you. And this is the last thing I want to leave you with. You have been living in a house that has always had this system running. The column has been moving through your walls since the first winter your house was occupied. It has been shaping your heating bills, your summer discomfort, your ice damming, your moisture problems, your indoor air quality. Not because something went wrong, because that is what physics does, continuously and without permission. The fix is not in a product. It is in understanding the 2 points you actually control, where the column breathes in and where it breathes out. Change those 2 points, and you change everything your house does thermally, in every season, for as long as the house stands. The fix was always there. You just couldn't see it.